Hello guys and welcome back to the With a Minute to Go podcast. As ever, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video if you do enjoy it, and smash that notification bell so you do not miss a thing. You can also find us on Spotify by typing in With a Minute to Go, or by clicking the link via our social medias on Instagram and Twitter at WAMTGpod. So, this week we've got a lot to talk about. The potential takeover at Arsenal with Spotify owner Daniel Ek looking to buy out Kroenke Sports Entertainment following the protests outside the Emirates Stadium. The newly promoted sides in Norwich and Watford, and what they'll have to do to avoid a repeat of the 2019-20 Premier League season. The Champions League semi-final first legs, Real Madrid against Chelsea and PSG against Man City. The Scout and obviously Matt versus looking to build on the impressive win over Tom last week. So just quickly on last week. Last week our camera did stop recording 20 minutes into it. Hopefully this week we won't have that problem. Anyway, we're joined by Matt. How are you, mate?
Yeah, very well, thanks.
Good. And we've got a very special guest today. Obviously, starting this podcast, myself and Matt wanted to work together to provide you guys with some good football content, and I'm pleased to say we're joined by the third winter. Lewis, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks. Been a long time waiting, but glad to be finally on.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure it'll be a good episode today. Right, we'll crack on straight into it then, and obviously the first one we'll come on to is the Arsenal takeover. Now, we're all Arsenal fans, and last Friday the protests outside the Emirates Stadium were pretty impressive and very well publicised. And obviously that was followed by Daniel Ek, the owner of the £50 billion company Spotify, tweeting last Friday, sort of unofficially declaring his interest in Arsenal. Now, since then things have moved on pretty rapidly, and he's actually done a TV interview where he states he'll make an offer in the near future. Ek, alongside his consortium consisting of the three Arsenal legends, Thierry Henry, Patrick Vieira and Dennis Bergkamp, looking to buy out Kroenke Sports Entertainment. And obviously this is huge news, so Matt, what are your initial reactions to this?
Exciting, but I think we need to be very careful and very realistic probably as to what will probably happen. And when it first came out, it was, hang on a minute, this could be something. And I think I speak for all Arsenal fans, or 99% of them, when you say we're not happy with the current board and the owners. The owner that's the distant owner, and Daniel Ek, a self-confessed Arsenal fan, obviously talking about the legends, Henry, Vieira, Bergkamp alongside it. I think for any Arsenal fan straight away, the mention of those names is a positive thing. But we've got to be realistic. This process, if it comes to fruition, it will take a long time. I think they've come out, KSE, and said that they're no interest in selling, and why would they? Probably, they're looking at it from a business point of view at the minute. Definitely. Of no interest in selling. But I think everyone has their price in anything at all, and that will be the key. I think how serious they are to want to put a bid in, and how much money they will go and spend. But I think everyone has a price, and there will be a price that Kroenkes are probably happy to sell at.
Yep. Lewis, would you agree with that?
Yeah, you've got to take it with a pinch of salt sometimes, these things. There's lots of people who want to buy football clubs, and you often hear a Nigerian billionaire wants to buy Arsenal or something like this. This seems a bit more serious. This guy, as Matt said, is an Arsenal fan. He says he has been for over 30 years. We've got to take him for his word that he used to come to Highbury, he used to watch the games, and often comes to the Emirates. That's all well and good. Has he got the money to buy it? I don't know. He says he does. It's difficult, really. As Matt said, why would Kroenkes want to sell at the minute? Obviously, with the financial situation with the coronavirus, perhaps they might at the right price, but they're not going to come out and say, "Oh yeah, we're for sale." It's gonna knock down the price of the club. So they're just gonna keep with its stance, I think, and see what Ek has got to put forward, because he hasn't actually put his offer on the table yet.
So the one thing I would say that could impact it is obviously the protests that have gone on. Do you reckon that sort of fan pressure will have any impact? Or obviously even we know Kroenke is based outside of the United Kingdom, so maybe that might not sway him too much as well.
Honestly, and it's quite sad really, I don't think Kroenke cares about the fan protests. Yeah. He's over in America. I don't think he pays much attention to it. He owns all these other American franchises and clubs, and Arsenal just one of many he's got. And I don't think it will have that much of an impact of him being far away, not caring about the club, not I don't know if he follows results as closely as he should do as an owner. I don't think he probably does. So, yeah, I don't think the protest. I mean, if they carry on at every single game, in the end, some may have to happen. But just a one-off protest, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, no, I've got to agree with you, to be honest. I mean, we've seen it in the past, but it's nice that we've, our fan base is united on one thing. Obviously, we've seen it in the past with Wenger, and there's been a lot of disputes and disagreements in the stands. But this is something that we can all come together on. And for me, this is obviously a great idea in principle, and obviously involving those three legends and Eck, who has probably said he's an Arsenal fan, and something that I picked up was during sort of Spotify board meetings, he'd be watching Arsenal on his phone, which I think that tells you something. So for Arsenal to have the prospect of having people at the top in charge of the club that love the club and support the club is something that I think has been vacant for that past sort of 12, 13 years. So just how important would it be for Arsenal's future to have people that care at the top of the club?
I think if you're talking about the Bergkamp, Vieira, Henry, 100%. I mean, every Arsenal fan, I think any football fan wants, legendary players or people that have the club in their heart and the best interests of the football club. And when we talk about football, we talk about what is on the pitch, not necessarily everything that goes alongside it and the business side, which football most certainly is now. I think any club would. Does it always work? No. It'd be interesting to see if and when we hear from these legends, and do they give any public sort of back into Daniel Eck, because I think I'm not sure I've seen any at the minute, but I've seen Daniel Eck sort of, obviously he's the one who's sort of not leaked out, but he said that these are behind him. Now I think if you look at someone like Thierry Henry and Patrick Vieira, young managers, I would have thought that they'd be wanting to try to get into managing, possibly in the Premier League at some point in the near future. Now obviously it was quite well publicised, Henry was potentially looking an option for Bournemouth. He can't be then in this consortium to buy Arsenal and then want to go and manage in the Premier League. 100%, that would have been a big change for them too. But again, I think Henry was on TalkSport the other morning, talking about his frustrations with what's going on at the minute. I think what you both said before with the protest, it was great. It was great to see, and a lot of Arsenal fans, I think, it was probably the most out of all the clubs in the week come together. And I think obviously the main reason is the Super League and the fallout of that, but also the frustration from the fans on the board and the owners. But Lewis is right. He's got a lot of franchises. 2,000 people, however many there are, aren't going to worry him. No. That's the problem. We look at Arsenal and the global fan base. That couple of thousand people meeting outside the Emirates. Now, if there was a larger scale protest, if it was a boycott of games, if it got that far, then you might sort of see it. If it starts hurting them in the pocket, which is obviously as a business, that's going to be the thing. Then maybe there will be some sort of time where Arsenal isn't as profitable, or Arsenal isn't makes business sense for them anymore, and then they may look to sell. But until that happens, I think we're probably stuck with Kroenke.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've got to be honest, I can't really see that happening. I know a lot of fans in brief have sort of mentioned about not buying merchandise or not renewing season tickets, and to be honest, that's just not going to happen, is it? I mean, I know we're going to renew our tickets, so it doesn't really make a huge difference to us. Now, the big thing I wanted to pick up on was obviously the three legends, Vieira, Bergkamp and Henry, all part of that invincible team in 2003-04. But is there a danger that if it doesn't go right, or if they do take over and we sort of go downhill a little bit, that they could tarnish those legacies?
I don't think so. I don't think so at all. Two of them have statues outside the ground, and arguably the other one should probably have one as well. Yeah. I think Arsenal fans at the minute will accept anyone apart from Kroenke, and if it includes these three coming in as well, even if it's not clear what their role would be, I think they'll accept it. I don't think you can go anywhere any further down than it is now. We're mid-table.
Yeah.
We might not even be in Europe next season for the first time in 25 years, or whatever it is. It can't get any worse than it is. If you have an owner who is an Arsenal fan, and three Arsenal legends, I think Arsenal fans would be more prepared to give them time. But as Matt said, it'd be interesting to see what they do. As Vieira and Henry are young managers, they want to. There's been talk of Vieira and especially Henry managing Arsenal in the future. I'm not sure if Henry was interviewed for the job before Arteta, but it was something to do with it. And it's interesting to hear Henri's views on the ownership now and the state of the club. You know, whether that had anything to do with, you know, that proposed interview that he had. But no, I don't think their legacies will be tarnished at all. I just think
No, obviously
they've done too much. They've got too much credit in the bank.
Yeah.
It will never go.
100%. I mean, growing up, you two, I mean, not me as such because I was born during that 2003-4 season, but you saw them in their prime, and to be honest, those three are probably the biggest three names. Matt, you agree with what Lewis was saying there?
Oh, 100%. You know, for me, Thierry Henry is the greatest footballer I've seen live, and I've seen Lionel Messi and I've seen Cristiano Ronaldo, but for me, I'll have my biased Arsenal hat on, but when I watch him in full flow, and even watching videos back now when they pop up on Twitter, you know, what he did for Arsenal, you know, Dennis Bergkamp as well, he obviously came before and really changed Arsenal as a club, pre-Arsene Wenger, and also what they all brought to the club. But Lewis is spot on. The legacies won't change. I think if they were managers and they're making direct decisions, it's like different when they're probably upstairs a little bit more. But you know that they're coming in and their best. You know they've got their best interests of Arsenal Football Club at heart. 100%. You know that, and you can guarantee that things. It's not a guarantee that things will go well and Arsenal will start climbing the table and bringing in the best players. But what you know is what they're doing behind the scenes is all to the benefit of the football club. Where at the minute you cannot say that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's the big thing. If they did come in, or if anyone did come in, we're not expecting Arsenal to shoot back up to where they were sort of 15, 20 years ago. It's all about that rebuilding process, and it's been mentioned a lot under Arteta, and obviously well, to be honest, it's gone downhill since then. I can obviously, we've spoken about in previous episodes that phase from around October till December where we hardly won a game, lost a lot of home games. So yeah, for me, if they do come in and it does take a while, then so be it. But obviously, for me the other sort of big concern and probably the main concern is the money side of things. Now, it's been rumoured that the Eck will go in with a bid around £1.8 billion to take over the club. Now, Kroenke has actually issued a statement in the last few days, and I'll read a little bit out now. So he said, in recent days we have noted media speculation regarding a potential takeover bid for Arsenal Football Club. We remain 100% committed to Arsenal and are not selling any stake in the club. We have not received any offer and we will not entertain any offer. Now, obviously, reading this as an Arsenal fan, extremely frustrating to be honest. But it does beg that question again, is this just a ploy to get more money for the club?
I think that's exactly it. That you're not going to come out and say, "Oh yeah, we are for sale." They're going to release these statements. They had to react to Daniel Eck's proposal at some point, and they've done exactly what everyone would expected them to do. The news straight away came out afterwards that Eck was still fully going ahead with his proposal. Yeah. He was going to, it hasn't put him off at all. He spoke the next day, did an interview yesterday, Wednesday. Eck speaking to American TV about it, how he's passionate still about doing it, and that he's ready to be in it for the long haul. I think that's what it will be, because it's not going to be a quick thing, and Kroenkes may not be ready to sell now. They may not say they're not ready to sell now, but maybe in the future they will be.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully. Matt, 1.8 billion.
Yeah,
not enough, really, is it?
Look, you've got to look at it 2 points. As much as we will talk football, and what matters, what happens on the pitch is the most important thing for sure. Look at it as a business point of view. Daniel Eck comes out and says 5 billion, and the Kroenkes would sell for 3. As a business, he's messed himself up there.
Yeah.
Vice versa. If Kroenkes come out and say, "Oh, we'll sell for 3 billion," and Eck would have gone, "Oh, well, I'd have paid 5 for it, but I'll take it for 3."
Yeah.
So you look at that's just basic business.
Yeah.
Same with Kroenkes make this statement: "We're not for sale, not for sale, any price. We're not looking to sell." Daniel Eck is interviews next day and says, "Oh, well, they say they're not going to sell, so we're not going to bother." That would show he's got no intent.
Yep.
The fact he said, "No, well, we're not going away. This is what we want. We're not messing around. We're serious here. We've secured the funds." I think is what he said, wasn't it? We've secured funds that we believe that will buy the club. Now, a lot will happen behind the scenes, and it won't be a quick process. This might take years down the line. You think about previous Arsenal. We look. Alisha Usmanov was involved. Monsieur who's the one at Everton now?
Farhad
Bashir was involved as well. That went on for a long time. Kroenke was involved for a long time before it ever happened. But I think just a little side note is worth remembering is, and there's been a lot of talk about the 51% fan ownership, which obviously is something that they have in Germany. When Kroenke got his majority shares, Arsenal fans who had shares were forced to sell to him. Now,
not right, is it?
it's not right, and at the time it was never right, and we're now in this situation where obviously he is the majority shareholder, he is the owner of the club, and that's something for English football. It's a wider thing, but that just shows where the fans are regarded at the minute, that there was, they were forced to have to sell their shares across to Stan Kroenke, and nothing they could do about it. Some people might say, oh well, you sold to the Kroenkes, but actually there's legally was nothing they could do. So that's another thing. But look, like I said, going back to that, it's a business. Neither are going to show their hand straight away, because that would be foolish. I think if you go online, I think Daniel Ek's net worth is 3.4 billion, is it, or something like that? And people saying, oh, that's not enough, and Stan Kroenke's more, but Stan Kroenke's more than Abramovich, I think.
Yeah, I think he's the third in the Premier League, richest.
Well, there. So it doesn't mean having that owner who's, I think Stan Kroenke is it 15 possibly, without looking, 15 billion.
Off the top of my head, I don't know.
That doesn't mean anything, because we've known that as Arsenal fans. 15 billion is not going to attract all the best players or do the right thing. So I'm not necessarily so worried with the financial side at the minute, but I think that it seems like he will be able to put some sort of package together. It's whether they can now come to an agreement, and like I said, it could take a long time.
Yeah, well, like you said, it could take a long time, and to be honest, whether it is this one or it's another 1-2-3 years down the line, do you see that at some point it could happen?
I think Kroenkes will go eventually. He won't be there forever. Obviously, Josh is much younger than Stan, so he could hang around for a bit longer. But I think they will go. The fan pressure will. It depends a lot on the results on the pitch. I mean, Arsenal fans are massively against how silent Stan is, and that's how his nickname. But I think it's mostly down to results on the pitch. Since he's been the majority shareholder, Arsenal have just gone in one direction, and they're keeping going in that same direction.
My only throwback will be to you on that one with silent Stan is, how often do we hear from Roman Abramovich, for example?
No, true, but
the only thing, he is at games.
Yes,
he used to be at games.
The thing is how do we want? What do we want from our owner? Do we want? Is it an owner that we want to be able to see, who's visually there, and when Abramovich did go to games, the camera would pan to him. He's celebrating. Obviously, it wasn't his club, but it's his club now, and he's taken that in his heart. Or are we looking right? We want an owner who's going to be like Abramovich financially, or the Man City owners, where they're just going to go, right, well, we're behind you, and this is where we're going to put the club. Here's 250 mil, go and buy whatever. That's what are we looking for. And I think it is, as fans, obviously we want our owner to be active financially. I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's bringing the finances to the club that allows us to compete with other clubs, because for a long time we had a manager who done very well with probably not limited funds, but not as many funds as the other big clubs. And now actually Arsenal, to be fair, the Kroenkes have spent a lot of money. You look at Nicola Pepe, 70 mil, Thomas Partey quite recently, 40 odd mil. So there is money going in,
just in the wrong areas. I can think of Mustafi's 35 million.
Well, that is that the owner's fault? I'm not sure.
Well,
that's the owner's fault.
I don't think it is. No.
That's down to recruitment, and whether that's a manager or recruitment team.
Many of the signings haven't been the Kroenkes' own money themselves. It's been raised, from money through the club. The one that was the most recent one, Partey, in last summer, which was, all reports say that it was funded by the Kroenkes. So hopefully it's heading in the right direction. Josh Kroenke said apparently to staff this week that funds will be made available this summer. But we hear that every year. The war chest stories coming out.
Season ticket renewal time, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's. But again, we've had it before with other managers, and a lot of clubs say, funds available, but is the right man there to use the funds wisely?
Yeah.
And we'd say over the last couple of managers, and to be fair, even Arsene Wenger had a lot of bad signings. Yeah. And I think the way the football is at the minute, the finances are so, to bring in a good player, not a world class player, you've got to spend a lot of money. And Arsenal aren't certainly attracting world class players currently with their league position. So to buy a good player, it's going to cost a lot of money, but also the recruitment's got to be right. To be fair, there's been some good recruitment, and there's been some things that just haven't worked out. But great if they are going to put some money forward. But I think that's another argument again: is the right man there to make sure we get the right players in.
Now, for me, quickly, obviously Wenger was there for a long time. He only left a couple of years ago. Sorry, 3 years ago actually. Now it is. It's a bit of a tough one to answer, I guess. But do you reckon if Wenger left sort of 5-6 years earlier, or say after that FA Cup win, that this would have come round 3 or 4 years ago, and now we'd be down the line a little bit more.
Possibly, yeah. It could have been pushed forward. Wenger did drag on a bit too much, as we all know. But it's hard to say. It's all hindsight, isn't it? Looking back, and we don't know how it would have gone. We don't know what manager they would have gone for. If Wenger went 3 or 4 years before, it could have been someone completely different. Emery was out of the blue when we got him. No one expected it until the day before he was appointed. So we don't know who they would have gone with, and that may have changed things. And it depends on the structure, the transfers. The team, they've changed so much in the last few years. Raul and Leahy, we had Sven Mislintat. We've now got Edu. It's changed so much in the last few years, even since Wenger's gone. Imagine the last 3 years. Yeah. So it's hard to know, who's actually buying the players, who's picking the players. So,
and I think this would be something in Arteta's favour is, we've seen it at clubs that regularly change their manager, and you see it lower down the pyramid more because it happens more regularly. But a manager will come in and none of the players will be his type of players, and then it's about trying to get out as many as he can, and then he brings in his players, and then before you know it, that manager's sacked, and it's such a vicious circle. So maybe it is in Arteta's favour now that they go, well, you know what, you've got some of the players in you want, and we talked about it on previous pods. The January window was fantastic for Arsenal and Arteta, and getting rid of players that he didn't want. And they're going to go, right, well, let's do that again now, whether it's the summer and January again. We've got that turnover of players to actually give you, rather than, there's a lot of talk, if we don't win the Europa League, Arteta's going to go. And, if he did, I don't think there's any arguments there. But, maybe that's an argument for him to stay, that they just want to keep some sort of consistency and able to bring in those players that are his players.
I think this is almost a little bit of a blessing in disguise that Unai Emery didn't have the distraction of obviously the ownership taking full command. Now, the final thing before we do move on, I want to ask you, Lewis, do you think this deal will go through or not?
The Daniel Ek one?
Yep.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
Any reason?
I think it's just too public. I've been listening to lots of Sky Sports News the last few days. I'm sure we all have. Yep. And they say, most of the takeovers that happen behind the scenes quickly. You don't know about them. This one's so public. He tweeted about it. He's on the TV talking about it, and we know all about the details about who's going to be involved. So I don't think so.
The question that's been raised, though, could this be the exception? Because it has moved on so quickly in the space of a week.
You kind of think that, was he sitting Friday night watching the Everton game, seeing the protests, and thought, I'd like to buy Arsenal.
Yeah.
And it's snowballed from there.
Yeah.
Because of the first thing is a tweet. Things might have gone on behind the scenes, but I kind of feel we had that vibe where Friday night he's watching the game, he sees the protest. Obviously we've had the week leading up to that game with the Super League. Monday it was happening, and all of a sudden then it's not happening, and I kind of felt, that'd be a good idea to buy Arsenal, and then it's very, very quickly snowballed into this thing now.
What I'd say is I think he must have been thinking about it. I had something in the plan before, because to get Henri Bergkamp and Vieira supposedly on board by Monday after tweeting on Friday, probably,
seems pre-planned, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think something must have been going on behind the scenes a bit longer than just Friday.
Yeah. Well, we'll move on, but at the end of the day, it would be nice to see someone else at the helm at Arsenal, whether that be Ek or anyone else. Obviously, the addition of the three legends in Henri Bergkamp and Vieira is a huge incentive for us fans. And I just wanted to briefly touch on the two clubs that have already been promoted back to the Premier League, Norwich and Watford. Now, both clubs have bounced straight back from the Championship after relegation in 2020. Matt, we spoke about both of these in a previous Championship-based episode. I think it's fair to say that they've both had a comfortable ride in the end.
Norwich have. I wouldn't say Watford. Obviously, they've changed their manager, and I think that's something that Watford are known well for.
Yeah.
Hiring and firing. I think they had at least 3 managers last year, didn't they, when they come down? And, obviously the manager didn't last long, but you've got to commend them on their appointment, because everything I hear about the new manager, and we watch Ben Foster and his videos twice a week, and he's Troy Deeney talking on TalkSport. They're very, very positive about this manager, and why wouldn't you? He's got them back up first time of asking. I think we talked about in the episode, the recruitment was good. They managed to keep hold of a lot of their better players.
Exactly. So is that the manager or is that the players?
Because at the beginning of the season they were poor, and that's why the manager lost his job. So the fact that the new manager is able to come in and get them playing and get them right, and to be fair, the one that's been the most interesting one is Ben Foster hasn't played. You know, he got injured and
for a few months, isn't it?
Yeah, they put the young goalie in, and he's been back for a while now, Ben Foster, and the goalie's played and done really well. And to be fair, Ben Foster's the ultimate pro and has spoke highly about him. And you know, inwardly he's probably frustrated he's not playing, but outwardly he's, you know, been great for the group. And yeah, look, I think Norwich have been, you know, Norwich have done what Norwich do anyway. They won the champion, you know. They come second. Did they win the championship last time? They've won the championship at least twice or four.
I think something like that.
When getting promoted, you know, talk about the quality of player they've got. I think a lot of their players are very much in between players. You know, fantastic in the championship.
Yeah, 100%.
But are they going to do it there? So you know, it's great for both clubs. Massive summer ahead for them.
But that sort of begs the question then: is there a case that a lot of these players, well, this club, if we're focusing on Norwich, have done really well to keep hold of their better players, sort of Pukki, Buendia, Cantwell, Max Aarons, that towards sort of summer, July, August last year, there was a lot of rumours that they could have headed elsewhere to the Premier League.
Yeah, and I think probably the impact of the coronavirus pandemic probably helped them in that regard, because people weren't willing to spend what Norwich wanted for these players. Buendia especially, I know he didn't have a great season in the Premier League. Campbell as well, them two in particular. They have done well to keep them, and the fact they've gone straight back up means they're more likely to keep them, because they can put a higher price tag on them if someone wants them. I know Arsenal have been linked with him, with Buendia and Cantwell before. You can add an extra 20 million on now when they're in the Premier League. Norwich don't have to sell, and you know they'll keep hold of them. But you're talking about the quality of their squads. I often speak to you about it, and you look through their starting 11. You say, "Oh, well, that's a Premier League squad." Well, so, well, most of them went down in the Premier League, so it doesn't mean they'll do better next year. But you know, be interesting. Pukki, you know, we don't know about Pukki. He seems a championship striker, to be honest. That's not trying to be harsh, but he scores you 25 goals in the championship and will get you promoted out of the championship. And I think that's about his limit.
He's the sort of player that would be re-signed by another championship side, sort of at the top, Cardiff, Barnsley, another team that don't go up, that will be looking to go up next year.
He'll be at Norwich, he'll be fine, and he'll do. You know, he started the Premier League season last year unbelievably well, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then he'll probably fade away again. If Norwich don't recruit well, they get relegated, and then he'll be one of the best players in the championship again. I think that's that vicious circle that Norwich are in at the minute. You know, to be fair, a lot of the clubs that have come up in recent years, you know, bar Fulham, who, you know, look like going to go down and managed to stick around for a while. Obviously West Brom as well, and this is probably one of the first years where two that have come up have been in the bottom three. You know, but it'd be interesting. I'm interested to see what Watford do. I think Watford have got a lot of quality. João Pedro at the beginning of the season was outstanding for them in the championship. Ismail Assar, fantastic player, linked with a lot of clubs. If they keep hold of him, they do well. I think, but the fact they've gone up, they've got a chance to keep hold of him, and they might say, "Give us 1 year in the Prem again. You know, be our star man in the Premier League." You know, they've got some good quality. Ben Wilmot, centre back, I really like him. He's come through, done really well. So, you know, they're interesting to see how it goes. They're both going to have to spend money.
Yes.
You know, they both will have money from going up. You know, to bring players in. I think that's important. I think, you know, the teams that don't necessarily bring anyone in will struggle. So yeah, look, it'll be interesting. But I mean, two good teams. They'll have players who 100%. They maybe not. Lewis is right. Probably not Premier League quality, but have a lot of Premier League experience.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't mean at the right end of the table or in the middle of the table. A lot of it's around the bottom of the table, but they've got that experience. You know, you look at Deeney's been in the Premier League. Andre Gray, striker. You know, you look at those players. Will Hughes. None of them scream out as really quality Premier League players, but they're all been there and done it. And you know, unfortunately, been part of the relegation team, but now part of the promotion team as well.
Yeah, well, a very broad question that I've got here is what I'm going to ask both of you is, what do you think they have to do different to stay up? Now, is it the case of sort of padding out their squads a little bit more with Premier League quality? Obviously, like we said, the players are sort of in between. Cantwell, Max Aarons, Buendia, Pukki, all very good players, but is it just a case of sort of buying that player that's sort of a next level up?
It's often all about scoring goals. They didn't score enough goals last season, Norwich. I looked it up before this podcast, and they scored 26 in their 38 Premier League games.
Yeah.
Which is
not
ridiculously low. And Pukki got 11 of them. I just basically
the first 2
I just
months
wrote off Pukki as Premier League striker, but he got double figures, and he nearly got half the goals. that's the main issue, and it's the main issue more for Norwich. I think Watford will spend more. I remember obviously one of the most famous Norwich fans is Jake Humphrey, and I remember him putting out a video. I don't know if it was when they got relegated, but when they got promoted, they do things differently. They don't spend their money necessarily on new signings. They spend it on the club, improving their training ground, and stuff like that. That was to their downfall last season, but they've come straight back up. So they'll be hoping to have a bit more luck this year. But it'd be interesting to see what they do with the signings, as I just said, because I don't know what they will do with the money. Watford, I think, will be more likely to spend it. And if they start next season with 3 or 4 defeats in a row, they'll probably get rid of the manager, because that's what they do. And they'll probably get Kike Sanchez-Flores back for the third time. So,
I think the Norwich one will be interesting. What I watched of Norwich in the Premier League last year, I think one of their downfalls in Daniel Farke was the style of football they played. They wanted to play out a lot. I remember 2 or 3 games where I'm getting caught in possession because they're just simply not good enough. I mean, we watch Arsenal every week, and Arsenal want to play out, and we know that Arsenal defenders are not good enough to do it. There's not the quality there. There's not the rotation in midfield at the moment, and I think that's where Norwich fell foul a lot during their Premier League time. So you'd like to think that obviously they stuck with the manager, and the manager's been fantastic to get them back up, and the squad have done well. I don't think they mathematically won it, but they pretty much are champions, aren't they? So. Thereabouts. He's now learnt, you'd like to think, and they're going to set up in a different way. Now, if they go and set up and they want to play and be free flowing, unfortunately, they're going to end up back in the Championship again. So that'll be a big test for them and how they do it. Managers have philosophies, and a lot of managers will live and die by their philosophies, and there'll be a lot of reason. Managers lose their jobs because that is the style of football we're going to play, and we're not going to change. For anyone. I remember they beat Man City. Did they 3-2? Yeah. And they played Man City off the park. Really. But that's a one-off. Majority of the time, they're getting beat because of the way they're playing, and they're not being conservative, and they're not going right. Well, we're Norwich. We need to make sure we're defensively sound, and then we try and score. What you said is right. 26 goals, but they try to play this free-flowing attacking football. Something's wrong there.
So I reckon that was just the early season bounce from the fans. The fact they're back in the Premier League. They're such a yo-yo club. They're up and down. Whereas Watford have been in there since 2015-16, all the way through, relegated, back up again. Maybe they're more of a Premier League side. So we'll move on then to, we're halfway through now, so we'll go into the Scout. A quick reference to last week's picks. Matt, it was pretty poor. Danny Welbeck. Brighton lost 1-0 in I think it's fair to say, a shock defeat against the already relegated Sheffield United. My player, Gylfi Sigurdsson, again did nothing. Another poor pick from me, but Everton were obviously gifted that win from some, absolutely stinking Bernd Leno goalkeeping. And Tom, our guest from last week, he stole the show. And when he said Chris Wood, to be honest, I was thinking, why the hell has he picked him? But he went and got a first half hat trick against Wolves, so that shut me up, to be honest.
Got an assist in the second half as well.
Did he?
Yeah, he got an assist as well.
Fair play, Tom. That's obviously easily the best shout we've had so far. Right, we'll move on to the picks from last game week then, and I'll go first. And mine was Timo Werner. Obviously, admittedly, we've discussed him quite a lot, Matt, and he's been very, very poor this year. But he did get a crucial goal to put Chelsea in prime position to finish 4th against the top 4 rivals in West Ham. So that's why I've gone with him. I know we've all struggled to pick from last game week because it wasn't a great one. Matt, I'll let you say yours.
I've gone with David McGoldrick, just because Sheffield United. I'm just trying to look up here. Their first win in 6 or 7, 1-0 win against Brighton. You just alluded to McGoldrick with the win out. Good finish, but I think it's fortuitous how he got the ball. Terrible Brighton play on the edge of the box. We just talked about playing out. 7 league goals. They've only scored 18 this year. So league top scorer.
Might do worse than Norwich.
I think there's been a lot of conversation that he isn't quite good enough, and I think he probably he isn't quite Premier League, but he's chipped him with a goal. He's 7 this year. I mean, that's all I can say.
To be honest, technically on the ball, not a bad player.
Back to goal, isn't he? He's not. Hold the ball up.
Impressed with him. It's the goal output, but generally on the ball.
A 7 out of 18 isn't bad, is it?
No, it's not.
I think it's always going to be the way with a relegation team. Lewis, who have you gone with then?
So I went with Joe Willock, who I think many neutrals would have been cheering for in the 96th minute at Anfield last weekend. It was a deflection, but 3 goals in 3 off the bench, which is surely pushing for a start now. The Arsenal loanee. And the interesting point is, I'd like to ask you both of you is about Joe Willock's future. It's interesting with Arsenal. We've got Saka and Smith Rowe and other, Hale End graduates, as they say. What do we think about Willock? Can he be a good backup to Smith Rowe perhaps in the future, or do you think Arsenal should cash in and get 20 odd million for him?
Well, this is an interesting one because we discussed this in the 5-year rebuild, and I think I put him in as a player that we looked to keep,
and I took him out.
But I'm not sure, to be honest. I think we could keep him as a squad player for the next couple of years.
Is he doing exactly what we'd want him to do at Arsenal? Scoring goals off the bench?
Yeah, I think he is, but I think he's a number 10 for me. He's not a central midfield. He's a 10. He's playing off the front man. I think if you look at Arsenal at the minute, obviously at the moment we've got Martin Odegaard and Emil Smith Rowe. All the talk is that Arsenal would love Odegaard, but it's probably not going to happen. Yeah. And I think I don't think Arsenal are resigned to that not happening, but I think the supporters are. I think there was chatting a couple of days ago that they're going to look to get a number 10 of some description if it is an Odegaard. Right. So that doesn't say much for Joe Willock personally. Just what I'm seeing there. It's a difficult one because he's an academy graduate, so you want to give him more time. And look, he's gone out on loan to play games and have an impact in games in the Premier League, and that's what he's doing. Yeah. I don't think Arteta's going to say anything more to him about that. You've got to go and play games. I'm frustrated he hasn't probably started as many games. I'm surprised. But obviously he's got a good impact from the bench. Maybe he'll start this weekend. He can't start this weekend. Sorry, against Arsenal, can he? So no. He won't play. But it is interesting. You want to give him more time, like you said. You want to give him more opportunity because they're an academy graduate. But at some point, you've got to say, I think a similar situation with maybe Maitland-Niles. I think he's probably in a better position than Maitland-Niles. Yeah. Although Maitland-Niles has seemingly done well at West Brom, I think his time will probably be at an end as well.
I mean, to be honest, I honestly couldn't call what Arsenal are going to do. They could keep him in the squad.
But then would you rather have, I'll put it back on you, a Joe Willock and a Maitland-Niles than maybe some of the players that, especially some of the fringe players, let's say, that are not performing when they get the opportunity at the minute, who are at Arsenal? Would you rather have those? At least you know that they're giving it 100% and the quality might not be to the necessary level that Arsenal want.
Yeah. Well, for now we're not going to get that quality, and we haven't seen it this year, and it hasn't been really present for the last few years at the level of Arsenal. So yeah, I'd give him a chance, to be honest. I'd be more than happy to have him sit on the bench and sort of work his way back into the team, probably through Europa League if we do make that. Well, I suppose if we do win the Europa League, win the Champions League, then
I think if anything we'll be in the Champions League.
It's a whole different ball game then, isn't it? Yeah. Right. Upcoming week. Now, for me, I've said look no further than Bruno Fernandes on my notes, but I've looked up his record against the Big Six, and let's be honest, it's pretty poor. Look, they've got Liverpool at home this week, so anything can happen. And for me, that record against the Big Six at some point has got to change, whether that's another penalty again or a free kick or whatever. And obviously he's a top player, and this year he's been again fantastic for United. And since he came in what was it, January 2020, he's had a huge impact on that team. So I think if United do want to win this game, he'll have a big say on it. Matt, who have you gone with?
I've gone with Matheus Pereira from West Brom. I think he's been a bright spark in a dismal season for West Brom, but 4 goals in his last 4 games. West Brom picked up 7 points out of the last 12, so that's an upturn in form for them. It's not going to be enough, but they're starting to put a little bit of a run together and a bit of quality. Scored penalty at Villa last week. I think they've got Wolves at home this week, and Wolves coming off the home battering by Burnley, which we spoke about. I fancy West Brom to beat them. It's a bit of a derby. It's a derby game, isn't it? So there'll be a lot on the line. I think he's got real quality, and although West Brom won't be in the Premier League next year, I'll be surprised if he wasn't in the Premier League. I was just about to ask you. Maybe not a starter at a bigger club, but certainly an impact player. Just comes across as a bit of a luxury player, which probably West Brom can't really afford. But then he's probably been one of their better performers. So we look at other areas of the team where, maybe defensively where they've come up short this year. But an interesting player, technically very good. Yeah. You expect Brazilian player. Was very good from in the Championship last year to get him up. But yeah, I fancy him to have an impact in the game against Wolves.
I think it might be a case of selling him and then reinvesting that and building around him and looking to bounce straight back like Watford and Norwich have done to the Premier League.
If they want to bounce back up, they've got to keep him, surely.
Yeah, maybe that's the case. Yeah.
Whether they can is another question.
Yep. Lewis, who have you gone with?
I've gone with the informed man, I think, of the Premier League, which is Iheanacho.
Yeah.
And they're away to Southampton on Friday night, and we know what happened there last year. So, I'm hoping he'll bag me a few, and I'll get the guests' luck from like Tom got last week. But Leicester can basically all but cement their place in top 4 if they win tomorrow. Southampton haven't been in great form themselves, and Iheanacho 12 goals in 9 in all competitions. It's ridiculous. I always was a fan of him at Man City in the early days. Thought his finishing, was a different level at times. He went off it, and he wasn't good enough for Man City, which is fair enough. And he hasn't had a chance much at Leicester because they were playing one up front, and that's always going to be Vardy. But now Rodgers is playing 2 up front. He's got his chance, and Vardy hasn't scored, I don't think, in them 9 games, but Iheanacho's taken over, and you can't look for much.
To be honest, around that time they had a lot of strikers there. Obviously, Aguero's the main one. I think they had Stefan Jovetic was in there, Edin Dzeko, Negredo around that time. So there wasn't maybe too many opportunities for Iheanacho, but obviously he's been a real revelation in the last few weeks for Leicester. And to be honest, it's been much needed with obviously quite a few injuries, and we've just heard Harvey Barnes is out of the Euros, which is disappointing for me because I was hoping that he'd be in the England squad. He's been very good this year.
Iheanacho, I think he's got the attributes to die for as a centre forward. Physically strong, can run in behind. We said about his finishing, left-footed as well. The goal on Monday night just come from that. What a strike!
Yeah.
No goalie saving that, even in the front post. And that's the quality. And then they credit to Leicester. Obviously, they spent 25 mil on him. Obviously, hasn't played as we said. Vardy's, but for Leicester now, looks all. But they'll be in the Champions League next year. They need that strength in depth. Vardy. I'm not saying Vardy's finished because he's definitely not. But they need to have quality to be able to play Tuesday, Wednesday night in a big Champions League game, and then go again at the weekend because they're going to want to stay in around the top 4. They want to progress. The talk this week with Rodgers, he doesn't want to go to Spurs. He wants to stay and he wants to build at Leicester. And who can blame him? The squad there they've got is great. If they can keep adding to that, which I think financially they've got money to do that. They have the pulling power of the Champions League now. But he is a player who. He's only going to get better. 24 years old, and I think could really, really blow up in the next couple of years and be world class.
I think at the time 25 million was maybe a little bit of a risk. They had players like Slimani, Okazaki was still around, obviously not great, but in terms of striking depth, obviously Vardy as well. That's 3 players there. So fair play. It's really paid off for Brendan Rodgers. Interesting,
you just say Iheanacho's age, only 24. I mean, he's been around. I feel like he's been around for ages.
Yeah,
he's only 20. I mean, you said about Rodgers and Tottenham there, and as an Arsenal fan, I don't want him to go to Tottenham because I think he'd be good for them. But Iheanacho would be a good signing for Tottenham, playing up alongside Kane if Rodgers
Don't give him
plays
ideas.
I'm sure Rodgers isn't listening. But
Don't tell sorry.
Not
Hopefully he'll be the new Spurs manager.
not a cheap replacement for Kane, maybe.
Well, the local news agents will do well on the cigarettes, aren't they?
Or a cheap replacement for Kane, more likely. I'll take that.
Yeah, right. We'll move on then to the Champions League semi-finals. First one, Real Madrid against Chelsea in the absolute teeming rain in Madrid. And at one point, I've got to be honest, I thought that game could have been called off. Chelsea deservedly went 1-0 up after 14 minutes through Christian Pulisic. Karim Benzema pegged them back in the 29th minute with an equaliser, and that's how it stayed after 90 minutes. Now, first thing I want to ask you, Lou, is that Chelsea were so dominant in that opening sort of, well, I said 20 to 25 minutes, but probably first half really. A number of chances missed. I can think of one that springs to mind is the Timo Werner 6-yard sitter. It was a great save from Courtois.
Great save, yeah.
Still, he should be saving. He should be scoring that. Sorry. So should Chelsea have capitalised on that early dominance a bit more than just the one goal?
You just said that you thought the game could get called off. I thought after 10 minutes, Real Madrid might have wanted it to be called off. Chelsea, I couldn't believe how dominant they were. And you say that chance, Werner. I've not seen a player miss so many sitters in one season as Timo Werner has. I think Rio Ferdinand said it after the game. Said they wouldn't. An academy graduate, maybe like Tammy Abraham, I think was the example used. He wouldn't get the same time that Werner's got because he was an expensive signing.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, Chelsea, they should have capitalised more on that. And Benzema's goal, which was a great finish, came out of absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
But that's how good he is. And could that come back to bite him next week? Possibly, because we see how clinical they can be even when they're not even playing very well for Real Madrid.
Yep, definitely. And obviously Chelsea, they're in the FA Cup final, second year running after losing to Arsenal last year. Just thought I'd throw that in there. In a decent position to look to progress into the Champions League final if they can beat Madrid in that second leg. Obviously looking good for the top 4 finish in the Premier League as well. Matt, what really defines success for them over the next sort of 4 weeks?
I think if they can get to the Champions League final, I think Thomas Tuchel's done superbly well. You know, it was a big call when Lampard was sacked. Not necessarily because they were achieving, because I don't think they were with the squad they had, but more because of the status that he has at that football club. You know, and Thomas Tuchel, obviously last club at PSG, didn't really achieve the goals that he was set out to do. I think they'll fancy their chances against Leicester, albeit in a tough game. In the FA Cup. And you know, I think before the game they'd have bit your hand off for a 1-0 or a score draw. You know, I was in the team in rain of Halifax, so I didn't watch the Chelsea game, but watching the highlights and like you said, they were quite dominant early on and had some good chances. I think they'll still fancy themselves to overcome Real Madrid in the second leg, and I think top 4 as well. I think if they'll sacrifice the FA Cup to win the Champions League, and I think they'd sacrifice the top 4 to win the Champions League. Albeit they will give them qualification for the next year. I think that's the one that they want. I know they've obviously won it already, but that is the one that everyone wants. I think you know, so that will be the holy grail to win the Champions League. But I wouldn't be surprised if they won the FA Cup and were top 4 and did make the final. Whether they'll win the final, we'll see who's in it first.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the FA Cup is another big one to win. To be honest, I think for me, success for them this year will be a trophy of some sort. Whether that be the FA Cup, obviously the Champions League will be big success for Tuchel coming in, and I think a fair chunk of that credit has to go to Lampard. Looking at Real Madrid, I think they'll be very pleased. You know, they only conceded the 1 goal with that early Chelsea onslaught. Lou, do you see, you know, maybe a fairly similar sort of defensive performance like the one we saw at Anfield, and looking to catch Chelsea on the break?
Possibly. They've got to score. So that's the thing. They've got to score.
Fully capable.
They are capable. There were 2 goals clear, I think, in that Liverpool game heading to Anfield. So this is a different kettle of fish, but they can score out of nothing. Benzema can score out of nothing. He's, you know, there's not many strikers at the minute better than him as an out-and-out number 9.
Got to agree.
They're still lacking players. Marcelo is a doubt now because of some getting selected for some election something next week. Yeah.
Really?
Carvajal is also possibly injured, and he's often been injured.
Okay. I'll tell you what though, Marcelo was very poor the other night.
Exactly, and I think he only played because there was no one else. It might be a blessing in disguise. They played 3 at the back, and he played wing back, and it wasn't. It wasn't great. How will they play next week? You know, as I said, they've got to score. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about our predictions in a minute, but
I'm just looking at Chelsea's last 3 home games, and they drew with Brighton, they lost to Porto, albeit we're already halfway. Well, it's a difficult game to stick or twist, and lost to West Brom. So that was their last 3 home games. Now I'm not sure how much we look into that ahead of the second leg. You know, they haven't scored a lot of goals recently. Take out in their last 5 games they've scored 3 goals. 1 at Real Madrid, they scored at West Ham, and they scored against Man City in the semi-final, and they drew a blank against Porto and Brighton. So they're not necessarily free scoring.
No.
You know, if Real Madrid went 1-0 up, it'd be interesting to see what happened now, because we saw their defensive display at Anfield. You know, were very good, albeit with a lot out. Whether any of those are back, is Ramos still out? I don't know.
Not sure. He seems to be out for an eternity, isn't he?
He potentially could be back this weekend for La Liga. They're saying, so if he plays that, he could play next week. Otherwise,
that'd be a massive boost
I think
for
they'd throw him
them.
in.
Well, for me, if you had those, if you had a clinical striker in around those creative players for Chelsea, I'm thinking about Mason Mount, Ziyech, Havertz is in there as well, Hudson-Odoi from the bench, Pulisic as well scored last night. I think they'd be right up there with Man City, to be honest.
Mason Mount looks different quality at the minute. I'm looking at him thinking he's not the same player. Who fans all over him, you know, saying Southgate's son and Lampard's son and all this stuff a few months ago. He looks, the confidence of him, and I've always liked Pulisic as well. He's starting to show a bit of the form that he had last season. It's that striker. You can't have Werner as your main number 9 if he's missing chances like that every week, and it is every week. You watch him. He might score one the other day, and then 4 minutes later, he missed an absolute sitter the other day.
It's the Fernando Torres effect, is it not? You know, you think about those years ago where he was superb for Liverpool and went to Chelsea and couldn't hit a barn door. I don't think Werner's a bad player. I think, you know, watching him in the Bundesliga, watching him at the end of where the German league started during lockdown, where our league wasn't going, and just the clinical nature of him, running in behind, the pace. You know, one little thing it reminds me of is when we watch Aubameyang at Dortmund, the amount of times he used to get in behind and he'd run from distance one-on-one with a goal.
Yeah.
Werner the same. It just doesn't happen in the Premier League
No,
as
it
much.
doesn't. Yeah.
Maybe, you know, especially the lower teams don't, and the less teams don't seem to play that higher line. They're very much a low block, whereas you watch the Bundesliga and you watch Aubameyang and you see the goals he scored there, and Werner the same with the pace, getting behind so easy, and they might have a third of the pitch to run into.
Yeah.
Maybe that's, look, some of the sitters and the tap-ins that he's missed are inexcusable, but I mean, he's a very good player. I think he's had a tough start, but as did Havertz. I think Havertz still hasn't shown anywhere near the quality. Ziyech shows it in patches. Yeah, I think Pulisic and Mount have been their best players.
The positive with Werner is he's still getting his chances. He's still, I mean, sometimes he passes them up and tries to pass to his teammates, and you question what he's doing.
It's just a lack of confidence.
He's getting in the right positions. Just cannot score. I think it's 3 in about 32, which is not good enough for a bloke who's playing number 9 for Chelsea.
No, it's not. And I think it's a great point you bring up, Matt, to be honest, about that space in behind. I can think of, the two most attacking players for Arsenal. Obviously, I watched a lot of videos of Lacazette on YouTube before he came, and most of his goals in the French league were running in behind, using his pace. That seemed to sort of disintegrate over the time at Arsenal when he's had no opportunities in behind. Same with Aubameyang.
French McGoldrick.
Yeah. The only sort of goal I can think of Aubameyang was at home to Everton last year. He got a ball put through by David Luiz. Also, I think it could be the case of there's not as many players that are willing to play those balls over the top. But yeah, I think if Chelsea do throw a more clinical striker in, I'm not sure if Giroud's injured or not. But
Just not getting picked.
I think he should be, because I think, you know, he's far more clinical.
I think you especially when you can have the subs you can have in the European competitions, I think he's a no-brainer.
Yep.
You know, if they find themselves needing a goal late on in the second leg, I think, you know, he's someone that could create something for himself from nothing, and we've seen it many times. You know, the ball bounces in the box, he gets his head on it, or he's able to do something quite ridiculous. The goal he scored was it? But the goal he scored this year at Atletico Madrid. So you think that, you know, he's probably unfashionable. That's probably the best way to describe him. But he's certainly someone that you would, you know, if you need a goal, want to give 20 minutes to just change things a little bit.
Well, he gets the job done. At the end of the day, that's all you've got to ask of a striker. Right, before we do move on quickly, tough one to call, to be honest. Lou, who are you backing for this tie?
It's interesting. I said to you earlier that after the game, Rio Ferdinand, it was Ferdinand, McManaman and Joe Cole. And Joe Cole and McManaman were adamant that Chelsea were going to win. They were certain. And Ferdinand said, I wouldn't be. It's not that cut and dry.
No.
I'd have Chelsea possibly as favourites. I think they could. It's going to be a tight one. Yeah, I'll go with Chelsea, just for the fact that it will be a close game.
Matt?
Chelsea.
I'm going to go with Chelsea, and more to the fact that Real Madrid aren't Real Madrid of old, or Real Madrid of a couple of years ago. If that was a Real Madrid side with a Ronaldo in it, even could have had a bad first leg, then I would have fancied them to come and overturn it, not overturn. I haven't got anything to overturn, but to win away. Just not sure they've got the attacking power to go and to score 2 goals, which they're going to probably need.
Yep. Okay, I can see that. I'm going to go against the grain. I'm going to say Real Madrid. I think Benzema gets his chances, he'll put them away. I've been very, very impressed with Vinicius Junior. There's been a lot of talk about him, sort of doubt in the media, and to be honest, on the ball he's fantastic, and going forward I think on the break is a real danger. So if they get 2 or 3 chances, I reckon they'll put 1 away, and that's the away goal chalked off straight away, and it'll be difficult for Chelsea, but it'll be a tough tie, it'll be a good one to watch. Right, move on then. The second semi-final, PSG versus Man City, and PSG would put one up after 15 minutes by the captain Marquinhos, who we talked about. Matt was very important for PSG, and he's cropped up with another goal. And they were fairly dominant in the first half. Second half though, it was all changed. The game was completely spun on its head in the space of 7 minutes. First with a goal from Kevin De Bruyne, a cross that crept in at the far corner. Matt, I'm sure you have something to say on the goalkeeping there. A moment of magic, to be honest, from Mahrez, whipped a free kick in from 25 yards. Controversial because well, I've seen it after now, and the wall wasn't great. I think one of the players moved out the way, so there'll be question marks over that in the PSG changing rooms. And then obviously to rub salt into the wounds, ex-Everton defence midfielder Idrissa Gueye was sent off for, well, I think it's fair to say it was a pretty shocking tackle on Gundogan. There was absolutely no doubt about that. Now, Darren Fletcher on commentary described PSG as a sort of Jekyll and Hyde type team, not only in the first leg but over the whole of their Champions League campaign. Now, first half they were excellent, second half lost of discipline really, and obviously the poor defending has given them a real mountain to climb in the second leg. Lewis, what went wrong for them?
Is it too simple to say the managed by Pochettino? Or?
It was very Spursy, wasn't it?
I couldn't believe what I was watching the first half. Man City, every time I looked up at the telly, Man City didn't have the ball, and it wasn't like watching Man City.
No.
And PSG were all over them, but they didn't create too many chances. They scored what they did create, and Neymar was enjoying it. I think the commentator was saying that he's smiling and laughing, and that shows how. He's on it. He's on it tonight.
Yeah, and second half he was nowhere.
But second half, that was it. And Guardiola must have changed something second half. But the 2 goals, I mean, should Navas have done better? What do you reckon with that one?
I think it's a difficult one. I think it's quite easy to say, yeah, he should have done better. It's a horrible ball that is. It's a cross, but it's on target.
Yeah.
So do you stick or twist? Do you come and be aggressive, and deal with the ball, knowing that actually you could get beat, or do you stick on your line and you're now waiting to see if anyone touches it? If no one touches it, like we saw last night, the ball goes straight in and there's nothing you do. He's reactive. He's waiting for someone to touch it because he believes they're going to. For me, I kind of think he probably did make the right decision. There's still enough defenders that could deal with the situation. I think if there wasn't, then maybe it's a little bit different. I think sometimes the lack of pace on the ball doesn't help.
Yeah.
No.
Because if he comes, if he stays on his line and any attacking touch towards the goal, it's going to be a tough save anyway. The fact he stays on his line and you're reading the ball, he can only react once it's gone past the players. Once he knows now that no player's going to touch the ball, and by then the ball was so close to the goal. Look, people are going to certainly say that's a goalie error. People are going to look at it and say, he's got to do better. He's either got to come for it, or he's got to be able to react quicker. Yeah, possibly, but I think it is such a difficult one. We talk about it often, and I think we've always said it for years that when we always the frustration. You can put that ball on target. It's such a difficult one for the goalie to know. They are undefendable. Any flick, it's a goal. Yeah. And then if there's no flick, it's difficult to defend and keep out. So difficult. But look, I mean, I think there was Joe Hart I thought was quite good on the analysis before,
well.
And he picked up some great things. Keylor Navas is probably the most underrated goalie I think in the world at the minute. I think he's been superb. I would have him in the top 3 at present. And I don't think many other people probably would, and that or many people would, and that probably shows how underrated he is. But yeah, that first one, it was certainly a difficult one. But I thought Man City they were not poor in the first half, but not great. They were fantastic second half, but had to take a moment like that, of a bit of a freak moment to spin the game. The second goal is absolutely scandalous. It's a semi-final of a Champions League. It is unforgivable to let that ball go in, and the look on Navas's face, the look on Verratti's face, lying on the floor. As the blocker. As that ball going, it just cannot happen. At that level, it is so inexcusable. That hits the wall. It looks a good free kick because it's gone in. Yeah. Any free kick that goes in is a good free kick. But that is such a poor goal to concede. And Man City could have had more. I thought Foden was unbelievable second half. At the end where he just jinxed through. It reminded me of Eden Hazard's goal against West Ham. Where he jinxed through him at Stamford Bridge. It was just like that, such quick feet to get him through, and just didn't have the finish. And Man City were well worth the win in the end, weren't they?
Exactly. And we've talked about how bad PSG were in that second half, but full credit to City and Pep. And when we sit back and take all things into account, if this Man City team do go on and win the Champions League and potentially make it the treble with the Premier League as well, surely they've got to be considered as one of the best sides ever.
It is a big claim, but the run of wins they have put together, they've barely dropped. Barely not won.
There was a stat about away Champions League. They haven't lost away in the Champions League.
I don't know.
Because when they were 1-0 down, everyone was. I'm sure they were saying on commentary that the Guardiola hasn't, or the Man City haven't lost away in the Champions League. Might have been this season.
They haven't. They didn't start the season that brilliantly, and there was all talk of Tottenham potentially winning the league and being up there, and City, and even United. They come out of absolutely nowhere and won all them games, and then if they go and win the Champions League, that's the holy grail for them, and for Guardiola, that's why he was brought in. Whatever they say, That's what they want. It's not easy just to say, right, we're bringing the best manager in the world and we're going to win Champions League. We've seen that. It's taken 5 years. But,
Yeah. Well,
you know, it could happen. And one of the greatest sides, possibly. Possibly, yeah.
I mean, we wouldn't be saying that at the start of the season. I remember watching them. They lost 5-2 at home to Leicester. It was on BT, and Ferdinand was on, and he was slating them. And at that time, to be honest, I had no idea where they were going, where they were heading, because Guardiola's been there 5 years now. Is it?
It's the 5th season, yeah.
So if that was the case, and they were sort of at the time, Tottenham were at the top, Man United were at the top. If they weren't going to be looking for the Premier League and the Champions League, it would have been a very difficult season for them. Right, before we do move on, Matt, who are you backing for the tie?
Yeah, I think Manchester City.
Yeah.
It's certainly not over. I think it's far from over. I think when you got the quality of attacking players, Mbappe, Neymar, Di Maria, then they've got a chance, PSG. But I fully expect Man City to defend well and score goals.
Yep, Lewis?
It's all about City's defending again. Stones, we know he's had a good 6 months or so, and then he's had a couple of mistakes in the last couple of weeks. And one of them little mistakes, and they'll probably punish you, especially Mbappe.
Yeah.
Neymar, he doesn't really score at the minute in Champions League knockouts, but I think I'm going to go with City, but I wouldn't rule out PSG at all. A couple of 2 or 3 away goals isn't.
I think testament to their defence. Actually, it was Mbappe's first Champions League game where he's completed 90 minutes and not scored. You know, and that, you know, I think I don't know if you know how the stat this morning was. He scored 128 goals for PSG already.
Ridiculous, isn't it?
And whatever you say about the league, you still got to put the ball in the net.
Yeah.
You know, he's still such a young talent. You know, they were talking about when he played for Monaco against Man City and knocked them out all those years ago. He was 17, wasn't he? And I think they won. Did they? I'm sure they knocked City out, didn't they?
Yeah, a few players were playing there because Mendy was playing left back. Fabinho, obviously now at Liverpool, was playing right back.
You know, so you can't write off a team like that, can you? And you're right in what you say. The defence, but you know, you look at someone like Ruben Diaz. I think he's got to be out there best defender in the world at the minute. Ruben Diaz. I think he was outstanding. He made a couple of really big tackles last night. You know, I think City have got that quality. I think the back four that played probably the strongest defensively. Although I felt that the change Cancelo to bring Zinchenko on was needed to have a left footer down that side, better quality. But you know, them as a back four plus Ederson in goal. Yeah, you know, very good.
Very good. Poch's knocked Man City out before at the Etihad Champions League. So
you never know. You never know though.
You couldn't rule it out.
For me, Di Maria has been very impressive this Champions League, and obviously Mbappe, Neymar.
The talk before the game was obviously on the midfield, and was PSG's midfield going to be good enough to deal with Man City? And in the end, it was no, and it wasn't helped by the red card. You know, the quality of Rodri, Gundogan, De Bruyne, Foden, and you think of those quality players. You know, I don't think that's the area of the pitch where PSG certainly can't match them.
Well, we've seen on occasions Man City ship quite a few goals at home in the Champions League. I think a few years back, Falcao lobbed the keeper. They conceded 5 at home against Monaco. So it's definitely possible.
You wouldn't be surprised if it was quite a high-scoring game.
No, not at all.
Because Man City are not going to sit back and wait. They're going to go for them.
100%. Right. Well, I'm not going to go against you two this time. It's a full clean house for Manchester City with this one. And the final thing of today's episode is obviously Matt versus last week's 7-2 battering against Tom. I think Matt will be looking to press on it and go 2-0 up in this series. Well, I think it's fair to say we all know it will definitely be one of the hardest contests we'll have because Lou, let's be honest, you know your stuff, mate. Again, it'll
no
be
pressure then. No pressure.
again, the same format, 10 questions with a multiple pointer to finish the game. Just throw a little bit of a spanner in the works. So today's questions will be based around football over the past week, and like last week, you both have different buzzers. So Matt, if you'd like to play yours first. Yep, fitting for the week, Lewis.
Okay.
He's done it again, Harry Kane.
Yeah, I couldn't put the full bit in there because a few expletives from Lee, but yeah, I thought it was fitting considering he's bottled another final with Tottenham. Right, if you're playing along at home, make sure to get in contact and tell us what your scores are, and if you want to challenge Matt, I'm up for that. Just direct message me on Instagram. Right, question 1. In Sheffield United's 1-0 win over Brighton, which Brighton player had a goal ruled out for offside? Yeah. Matt? Yeah.
I know. He begins with M. He's a centre forward.
Can't help you.
Mojar. Mojar.
That's not. You're so close. No.
Major.
No.
I can't give you
Not
that.
Josh
Matt.
Mazur.
No.
It's Jakob Modder.
Oh,
I can't give you that. I'm sorry. 0-0 after one question. Very close though. To be
Yeah.
fair, I looked
He
the guy
went. He
up.
went too early there.
No,
Yeah.
like, you didn't know who it was, did you?
I didn't know.
No.
Right. Question 2.
I knew it was. I just didn't know what his name was.
Yeah. Well, neither did I. Brentford won both their games this week 1-0 with the same goal scorer. Who was it?
He's done it again, Harry Kane.
Who was it?
Brian Mbeumo.
It was 1-0 to Lewis. Early lead after 2 questions.
I'm up against it now.
Yeah, you are. Right. Question 3. In Sunday's Carabao Cup final, 3 players received yellow cards. Can you name them? Now there's 2 points. That's Matt. 2 points for all 3, 1 point for 2 of them.
Emerick Laporte,
That's one. Yep.
Serge Aurier,
No. Can you get 1 point?
Harry Winks.
No. Lewis, pass this over to you. Chance for 2 points here.
Oh, blimey.
Why did you get 2 points? I've already answered one.
Yeah, well, you should answer them all.
Honestly, I have no idea, but I'm going to go with Højbjerg because he always gets booked. Højbjerg?
It's not him.
No.
No, there's still a chance for 1 point here.
Okay, and
Taking Laporte out of it as well.
we'll go with Gundogan.
No.
So
No.
I'll get a point, do I?
You only name one.
Yes, that's 1 point.
No, it's.
But
So-
you're going to give him a point just for getting one right.
Well, you obviously said Laporte already, so it's sort of a tactical game.
okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't think anyone got
No
any
points for anyone. So it was it was Sergio Reguilon, Emerick Laporte, Matt said, and Fernandinho. So that's what.
Yeah, I
that's
knew
still
Knew it was Fernandinho.
that's still 1-0 to Lewis after 3 questions.
It is.
We
Yeah.
had this after last week, and then it picked up towards the end. Right, number 4. Chris Wood scored a hat trick on Sunday in Burnley's 4-0 win away at Wolves. But who was the last Burnley player to score a Premier League hat trick before him? Very early there, Matt. Before he even finished the question.
You thought it was going to be a different
Go
question,
on then,
didn't you?
Matt.
Andre Gray.
Wow.
Oh my god.
How has he got that? that's unbelievable. Andre Gray, 2016, December the 31st at Sunderland.
Blimey.
That's a hell of a shout.
That day.
That's
To be honest, I thought you were going to say who scored the 4th goal.
So was I.
So that's why I'd come in and you put me on the spot.
That's
so
a-
I
that's
just
a
I
great
still
shout.
don't know who it
though.
was. Who
That's
was
a
it?
great shout.
Westford, wasn't it? Scored the 4th
Oh,
one.
I was going to say him.
Yeah,
Bang
great
outside
finish,
the
yeah.
box. Yeah.
Honestly, I wouldn't have said Andre Gray. I completely forgot he
I was
played
trying to
for
think
Burnley.
of Burnley strikers.
Yes,
to be fair.
yeah. Right. So it's 1-0 after 4 questions. Question 5. Watford clinched promotion with a 1-0 win at home to Millwall on Saturday. But who scored the only goal
He's
of the
done
game?
it again, Harry Kane.
It was Lewis.
I am going to go with João Pedro.
Incorrect.
Oh.
Matt, over to
It's
the...
a penalty from Ismail Assar
It was Ismail
watched it.
Assar.
on Ben Foster's.
I was thinking
yeah.
that must have been a different game.
Yep, 2-1 to Matt after 5 questions. And on to Ben Foster. He's been relegated from the Premier League with 3 different teams. Can you name them all? That's Matt.
Watford,
Yes.
West Bromwich Albion.
Yep.
Birmingham City.
All 3.
Oh.
Wow, very good, Matt. Very good. But there's only 1 point for all them 3.
Oh, that's good.
Right, so that's what 3-1. 3-1 to Matt.
Oh, blimey.
Question 7. Who has the most yellow cards in this year's Premier League?
He's done it again, Harry Kane.
I don't know, but I'm going to guess because I had to get there before Matt.
Go on.
Gareth Barry don't play anymore, does he? Ruben Diaz.
No, incorrect. Matt.
Højbjerg.
Incorrect. No, it was Harry Maguire pulled out in front with his 10th after being booked on Sunday. Question 8. The last time Arsenal met Villarreal was in the 2008-09 Champions League quarter-final second leg, beating them 3-0 at the Emirates. Who scored the first of the 3 goals? That's Matt.
Theo Walcott.
It was Theo
Oh,
Walcott, a
dear.
delightful chip
Chip.
over the
Assist from
ex-Real Madrid
Fabregas.
goalkeeper. Yeah, lovely ball through. So what's that?
4-1.
4-1 to Matt.
4,
right.
is it?
Yeah, there's 2 questions left. Obviously, the multiple pointer, so there's still time for you to get back
Is
into
it?
it.
Okay.
Yeah,
How
it's
many
good.
multiple points? How many points are there?
I'll explain it when I get there.
How many? However many I need.
Right. Number 9. Neymar or Mbappe? Who has the most Champions League goals this season?
He's done it again, Harry
Lewis.
Kane.
That is Mbappe.
It is Mbappe. Very tight. Neymar is 6. Mbappe is 8.
Just doesn't score knockouts.
No, exactly.
Neymar.
Yeah. Right. 4-2. Then going into the last question. It's going to be a tight one. So this is again like last week. It's a who am I? So 4 points for guessing after 1 clue, 3 points after 2, 2 points after 3, 1 point after 4. First clue. In the last 10 years, I've played in the Serie A, Premier League and Bundesliga. No. Okay. Second clue. I've won 2 Premier League titles. No?
I need this one, don't I?
You do. Okay. Third clue. My current team are still in the Europa League.
He's done it again, Harry Kane.
Get in Dzeko.
Is that
Ah.
He's made it 4-all on the last question. I honestly don't have a tiebreaker. Let's try and think of something to do here. Dude, fair play. I honestly didn't expect you
That's a good one, that is.
to get that last one. Let me fire up a generic question.
A generic one.
Keeping saves. Yeah, last week was well, let's be honest, it was a battering, wasn't it? So I didn't expect that. Right. Here we go then.
Don't bottle it, Matt.
Oh, I've got to do my thing again. This is annoying. It's a very small button. It's hard
Is
to
it,
press.
is it a buzzer one, yeah?
It is a buzzer one, yes. In the Premier League 2020-21, who has made the most saves? Matt's got there.
No, I've got it. I know it. He knows it.
I don't know if I do. Oh, God. Sam Johnston.
It's Sam Johnson. Matt's the winner. 2-0. He's taking it again.
His speciality.
Yeah. Unlucky. That was well, you gave him a fair old game in the end.
Yeah,
mate.
that was good.
I know it just wasn't quick
enjoyed
enough.
that.
Yep.
I bet you did.
Really good. Really
Nice
good.
of the opposition to turn up.
Matt,
Tom?
2-0.
Yeah.
We'll try and find you a more competitive guest next week.
No, that wasn't bad.
No, I know.
No.
Game.
Right, that's about it for today. Something that I am considering for the future is recording maybe like short 20-minute episodes, looking at the clubs to rebuild, obviously in our 5-year rebuild series. I haven't forgotten about that. We just haven't had probably the right time to prepare for those episodes, so I'm more than happy to do it on my own. You know, if you do want to see that happen, you can email us, reply to any of the Instagram stories that I do put out, DM us, whatever you want. Matt, as ever, it's been a pleasure, mate.
Yep, and really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and Lewis, it's nice to have you on. I'm sure during the next few months we'll get you on again at some point.
Yeah, cheers. It's been good.
Excellent.
Apart from the quiz.
Right, we'll have a part 2 coming up, I'm sure, at some point. Right, cheers, guys. Thank you very much for listening, and keep talking football.